The nights are drawing in, Halloween is drawing close, and the sun is on its way down for the night. I think it's time to build a ghost detector. Going on a proper ghost hunt. Oh, what was that? So just out of curiosity, I decided to build one of these so-called ghost detectors, which is essentially a static electricity detector. I have a ton of these BC548B transistors lying around because I was messing around with building transistor logic a while ago. So picked a few of these, few resistors that I have lying around, and a red LED. I'm just following the first image that came up on Google image search. Like, I don't want to rip anybody off, so I haven't actually filmed that image, but I'm going to kind of produce my own drawing for this if it turns out to be interesting. I'm also going to see, I mean, the main point of this video is, can I take this circuit somewhere it hasn't been before? Possibly not. That's going to, the base on this transistor is going to form a kind of antenna. So I'm plugging in this long piece of single core wire into that row. Essentially what this is a Darlington pair, except there's three of them. That's essentially a collection of transistors which is acting as one extremely sensitive transistor. So I'm going to draw the circuit diagram a bit later on. There are also fairly good videos about this circuit, in fact excellent videos about this circuit already produced. I just want to see what else I can do with it. You'll see, I'll just zoom out a little bit here. You should be able to see that when I put my hand close to this so-called antenna here, the LED brightens. It's also interesting to see how it responds when I move the lead of this lamp around near that wire. It actually causes it to dim a lot more momentarily. I wonder if that's actually because it's somehow earthing static electricity away from this area. Anyway, I think this is a fascinating circuit, just as it is, but maybe there's something else to do with it. So here's my quick circuit diagram for that very basic circuit. I'm powering mine off 5 volts. I'm actually using an old mobile phone charger power supply. There's my attempt to draw an antenna on the base of that first transistor there. I'm actually interested to see if I can change these resistor values to maybe even a consistent value, because I'm actually thinking of building many copies of this circuit, and I don't have that many different resistor values. I kind of bulk bought 10k values and 1k values a while ago, so maybe I can substitute in those. A 1k resistor on the second transistor and 2 10k resistors in series on the first one, so that is 20k resistance in total here and 1k there, and this is suddenly extremely sensitive to the presence of my hand. I changed that initial circuit diagram to have 20k here for that resistor and 1k for that resistor. What's better than one ghost detector? 2 ghost detectors. My hand next to that antenna lights the left LED. My hand next to the other lights that LED. What I was interested in is if these would actually trigger each other. I haven't seen that effect yet, but it'll be interesting if I build more and mess around with the antenna positions. Maybe I can get some interesting patterns going on with these circuits. So I just used SketchUp to create this pattern of holes, which is exactly right to hold all the components for one ghost detector circuit. Then I just copied them into a 5x5 grid, which I'm going to laser cut into a piece of acrylic. So that will allow me to create a matrix of 25 ghost detector circuits, and it will be interesting to see how those respond, if they start to trigger each other or they respond in a kind of interesting image-like manner to static electric charges around a room, for instance. This ghost detector operates on the very unfounded assumption that ghosts are formed of or can influence electric fields. This theory dates back to a time when electricity was the newest world-changing discovery. Because of course ghosts are often invisible and poorly understood, electricity is often invisible and was poorly understood, so obviously the two must be related, right? Ghost hunters in the early 20th century made use of electroscopes and galvanometers, along with other then novel scientific devices. I'm reminded that of fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. Several of his stories feature real-life turn-of-the-century electrical apparatus. I think he was fascinated and repelled by the discovery that the human senses perceive only a very tiny sliver of what we call reality. His short story, From Beyond, features an electrical machine that allows its users to see beings composed of exotic forms of energy or matter that are usually invisible to humans. The progression is logical. Real scientists at the time were discovering these imperceptible forms of matter that exist parallel to our sensory experience. So perhaps beings could be composed of that matter, who lived alongside, inside, through us, without knowledge of our existence. Another Lovecraft text, Nyarlathotep, is believed to have been inspired by Nikola Tesla's electrical demonstrations. Brian Cox recently claimed that the Large Hadron Collider has proved that ghosts don't exist. His rationale was that the LHC is able to detect such a wide range of forms of matter and or energy that by now it would have detected the substances from which ghosts are made. He clearly had his tongue in his cheek and was being deliberately provocative, but I often like to stubbornly take what people say seriously and follow statements to their logical conclusion. I think what he really proved is that belief in the supernatural, or in religion, is ultimately a matter of faith, not reason. Because when confronted with the lack of evidence of spirits, even at the level of subatomic particles, a true believer in ghosts can easily claim that they are not formed of either matter or energy as scientists understand them, and boom, they can continue with their beliefs as they had before. I decided to just wire up a 3x3 grid of ghost detectors because it was just taking too long, especially when I hadn't really proved that this concept would do anything interesting. I hooked the circuit up to a 6-volt battery pack to allow me to carry it around the building to look for ghosts. This is not actually a ghost, it's a dismembered Chinese lucky cat. This is also not a ghost, it is a 3D printed impeller which is printed out of a glow-in-the-dark filament, which has given me the occasional fright when I walk into my studio in the dark. If I touch the DC power supply of the video camera with one hand, enough static electricity passes through my body to light these up with my other hand. There's a strong static charge on that towel. Clearly it has been touched by a spectre. It's It's interesting how, even though I just spent the last hour building this and I know that it's just an electrical device, walking around your workshop in the dark can begin to get creepy. It's interesting that just walking through, yeah, this can be creepy because clearly there are just areas of air which have a charge to them. I just decided to try a totally different setup just to see what would happen. I added these 2-meter long lengths of aluminium in direct electrical contact with the antenna of one of the ghost detector units. After a couple of minutes, the LED connected to that circuit started to glow faintly. So I think what's happening is there's a kind of reservoir of charge building up on this antenna there, which is somehow making this more sensitive, that maybe it's kind of pushing the whole circuit closer to its threshold of lighting up. You can see now, even if I move my hand within a few centimeters of anywhere on this, effectively this antenna, this LED fluctuates quite noticeably in brightness. I think it probably helps that I'm not holding the circuit now either, because I think that as soon as I touch the circuit board, the charge drains away through my body, and so any effects are very fleeting. I've switched the lights off just to, well, that was interesting. As soon as I turned the lights off, the LED glowed a whole lot more brightly. I assume that's to do with some sort of electrical discharge. I'm just wondering if my soldering helping hands will act as any sort of antenna. This is my last little mini experiment. I connected 4 of the antenna wires to larger metal objects to act as independent antenna. They're just electrically isolated from each other. So I have a length of aluminium pipe, 2 different lengths of aluminium square section, and my soldering helping hands. You can see what happens when I switch the lights off. Yeah, this is a very peculiar link between the lights. And we'll see if the charge will start to drain away again. Can I drain the charge through my body? Not quite. Yeah, I had hoped to create this situation where they all kind of influence each other. I'm just touching the antennas alternately. It's quite satisfying to see that they're suddenly, each circuit is suddenly able to influence its neighbours. And now in general most of the objects are able to detect my presence just within a few inches of them. So I think my final conclusion for this is that adding large metal objects as antenna really makes it perform in a far more interesting way. I was hoping to make a compact circuit, a sort of portable thing, I may work out how to do that in future, just with a whole bunch of metal attached to it. Anyway, I hope you found that video entertaining, maybe even a little bit educational. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more sort of makery stuff, obscure electronics, Arduinos, all of that sort of stuff. Have a terrifying Halloween. I make videos about Arduinos, including the obligatory Arduino watering system. I modified a Chinese laser cutter to run on G-code. I started using that to make laser cut marquetry. I also made a blog about building my own CNC machine from scratch using acrylic sheets and the open build C-beam system. So there's a whole playlist which will kind of show you the process, and all of the designs for that CNC machine are available for you to download, and you can make your own. I used that CNC machine to engrave some veneer to create a replica of the puzzle box from the Hellraiser series of films, which was my entry for the Instructables Halloween contest this year. There's a lot of miscellaneous stuff on my channel, but if you're into maker stuff, you're probably going to find it interesting to subscribe.